Welcome to the Business Spotlight. My name is Jada Walker. I am your host for today's conversation, and my guest today is Karen Crnkovich, the owner and chief handshaker of DMC Service Incorporated. So thank you today. Thank you so much, Karen, for coming on here. We'll be talking about her business, the journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek of what it's really like to operate a business. So if you could please, Karen, like I said, welcome. Thank you for coming on here today. I would love for you to give us a little bit of your background and share us a little bit about your business as well. Wow, it is definitely Monday for me today. I can't speak.
It's Monday after a holiday weekend, so that's even
Yes.
tougher. Jada, thank you very much for having me. I am honored to be featured. Like you said, I'm Karen Crnkovich, and my background actually started in the sales and marketing line of work in hotels. I sold digital printing, things like that. It was very corporate based sales and marketing. And then 15 years ago, I bought into a privately owned family business and I became the majority owner back then. And then life happened, and 11 years ago, I had the opportunity to buy the founder out, and I did. And so now I'm the 100% owner, proud 100% owner of DMC Service. And we are commercial heating, cooling, and plumbing contractors, which I like to say we're fixers, not builders in anything that's a building, warehouses, distribution, office spaces, retail spaces. We're the guys and gals that go out and fix the things that are broken.
Awesome. So let's set the stage a little bit for our viewers and listeners. So, generally speaking, tell us a little bit about your role that you play in the business today.
Well, today my role is much different than it was 11 years ago. When I bought the founder out 11 years ago, I was doing everything back office. I was answering our phones, handling our dispatches. We were not paperless at that point. So we had old three-part forms where technicians in the field would handwrite what they did at any customer's location, and then they'd bring it back to the office, and I'd hand type those into QuickBooks and print it out, mail it, stamp it, mail it, and hope to get paid in a
Yeah.
reasonable time frame. I also did everything HR. I was managing the teams in the field. I was doing all of our QuickBooks, payroll, taxes, AP, AR.
Goodness, it's like you had like your foot in every little area in the job.
Every little piece of DMC, I was basically um, what's the guy? The ringmaster of the Three Ring Circus. And then over time, we scaled. And now I've been spending a lot more of my kind of business hours more civically minded, and we can or don't have to talk about that. But I've scaled the business to a way where it generally does run without my intervention. And
Nice.
I like to say it's like a light hand on the rudder where I advise our COO, I advise our CFO, I make sure that things, that we stay on course and help, define the vision and our goals, hold people accountable. But then the team that I've hired, which I will say the extraordinary team that I have hired and assembled really handles the day-to-day of the running of DMC.
Well, nice. Because I was actually my next question was going to be like I know many business owners, especially those newer to entrepreneurship, feel as though they never have enough time. So I'm curious, based on your experience, if you were to have an extra 10 hours back each week, how would you invest those hours?
Yeah, so I have decided to get involved politically. And what drove that was a general frustration as a small business owner, seeing firsthand how inefficient and effective, generally speaking, government at all levels, but my first kind of dipping my toes into politics was running for U.S. Congress last cycle in 2024. I was a candidate, and I'm not a congresswoman from Kansas, so I wasn't successful in winning my election, but where I do feel a lot of success and pride was I ran a very good race for a first-time candidate, and then have decided to um, set my sights more locally because I felt or I feel that my talents, my business acumen, my care for our community would have a better and bigger impact here locally. So I am a current candidate for our commission chair, which is a 2026 election.
That is so cool. I mean, the fact that you even had the confidence to go out there and do that, like I don't have the confidence to go out there and be in politics at all. I don't even like to talk about it really, but that's
Most people
amazing.
don't. Most people don't, but and we don't need to make this a political discussion, but that's the problem is that we've gotten so divided and people are so um, entrenched in their points of view that there are
Yes.
very few people who are willing and able to say, hey, regardless of what side you sit on, let's have an intelligent, thoughtful discussion. And I'm, doing my best to bring that back.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't feel like it should matter about your political views. Like, as long as we're both trying to come together and make something right and make it good for everybody, that makes sense to me. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense to me. Everything else, I'm like, I don't know, that could just go out the window. I don't understand it. But that's a whole nother conversation.
That is a whole nother conversation. We'd be here all day talking about that.
Literally.
But and I laugh. It's not even 10 hours a week. It's, that's more like 60 hours a week is spent on
Yeah.
that side of my life now.
Yeah,
And
because I'm like, it's
10
almost like a
hours a
whole nother
week.
job.
Yeah, it is like having another job, only at least right now I'm not getting paid for it as a candidate. Um, but it's more I spend 10 hours a week on DMC and the rest of my time is devoted to being the best candidate that I can be and hopefully winning in 2026.
Yeah, and of course, and even that doesn't work out, at least people can see your face. They'll probably Google you, and then they'll see your business and be like, "Oh, like maybe I could use her for this." So I feel like that's perfect for you. So
Yeah, I'm not running to get to build the business, but it doesn't
right, of
it doesn't
course,
hurt. It doesn't hurt.
right, yeah. Okay, so before we get into the nitty gritty of the business itself, let's take a look into your background and what led you here. So, why did you choose to go into business for yourself as opposed to, well, actually, you said that you bought into it. So, how did you make that decision to go ahead and buy into the business instead of just starting your own company?
Yeah. So, in full disclosure, this business was founded by my now ex-husband. And
Oh,
back
wow.
then, he founded it 21 years ago. And, his desire was to work for himself, build a business, do things differently than many of the companies that he worked with. And he had a great background. To this day, he's still probably mm, the smartest technical mind that I've ever known. Thankfully, even though there is an X in front of his title, we are very good friends. But back then, he was growing the business and he was very, very good technically minded and he knows how to make money. But it was all the administration stuff, the back office things that really were not his spiritual gift, as I like to say. And
Mm-hmm.
I was at a crossroads in my professional career where I was extremely, extremely unhappy at the job I was at the time. And it was a really toxic work environment, unfortunately. And
Oh,
we
I've
made,
definitely had one of those before.
yeah, and we made the decision as a couple that, he had grown the business to a place where it was providing more basically revenue for us than I was working outside the home, and there was potential there to continue to grow it. So we decided to kind of put all our eggs in one basket and work together. And it worked really well for a while. And, like I said, life happens. And back 11 years ago, when things changed between us, there was the opportunity. We were it was one of those forks in the road. And
Hmm.
the decision was either, sell it for parts because we had built a lifestyle business, but we had not built a company of value per se,
Right.
or and go our separate ways, or I double down and take a chance on me and the vision that I saw for what DMC could be. And so I chose door number two and, closed my eyes and took a leap. And, it's not without bumps and scrapes, but the reason why I did it was because at that time, and really still to this day in some ways, I didn't see companies in the trades that really put customers and employees first, ahead of
Mm.
profits, uh, and that built their, basically company around a really strong and positive culture and core values. I would ask other HVAC owners that I knew, or, well, does your company have core values? Do you have a mission? Do you have a vision? And over again, those people would scoff at me and say, plumbers and HVAC technicians, guys in the trades, they don't care about that stuff. All they want is their paycheck and their hours. And, I really sat with that a lot and thought about it and decided that they were wrong and I was going to prove them wrong. So,
No, really, because it is like, why wouldn't they care about that? I don't like, doesn't even make any sense.
it makes no sense. And, I'm very grateful that, 11 years later, um, 11 years later, we have proved them wrong. And the people who
Yeah.
work for me, that especially the ones that come from other companies, they see the difference, they feel the difference. And that means a lot to me that, there's never, in life, there's never a summit, right? You never, until,
Hmm.
literally we take our last dying breath. That to me is the summit. But there are levels that reach, and then set another goal and, a more ambitious goal to do something bigger. But in terms of building a company with a really strong positive culture, I feel we have achieved that. And it's very exciting and gratifying. And, that's one of the things that, when I spend my 10 hours on DMC each week, a lot of that is to try to continue to solidify that strong core positive culture.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot because I actually read on your LinkedIn the four C's. I actually wrote them down. Your core values are connected, committed, capable, and champion. So I really like that, and I actually read through it, and I was like, oh, that's like really like I loved everything about it. And I was like, I feel like every company needs to have. They just need to have the four C's like you, because
Well, and all of
it's
that
really nice
was
to see that.
right. The four C's and, DMC service, like the story is named, and so many companies are named after their founders, but DMC
Right.
is my ex's monogram. And when I bought the company from him, and became, I hate to be like, oh, it became mine. It's not like that. But when I became the owner, it didn't feel like a really strong like story to tell, to be like, oh
Yeah.
well, DMC stands for my ex's initials,
Right.
that just didn't feel authentically
People
mine.
would probably be like, what?
Yeah, and so from I signed the paperwork in March 2015, and when we uh, December, I took from March to December to really think about, okay, what do I want DMC to stand for? And I
Hmm.
kept coming back to this idea of the diamond. One, as a girl who doesn't love diamonds, but
Right.
also diamonds are strong, diamonds are beautiful, diamonds represent so many things. And I felt like that really was who I wanted DMC to become, was a company that was very strong but also brilliant. And then I started thinking about, okay, how do I build out our culture around the idea of core values? And, diamonds, when you go diamond shopping, you measure diamonds by the four C's. And, my friends who are big into diamonds
Oh, that is,
don't don't
yeah. Oh
quote
my
me
gosh.
on that, but that's where the four C's came from. But not cut, color, clarity, and whatever the other
Right.
one is. Um, and, and then I started thinking like, okay, if, we're committed, if we're capable, connected champions, what does that mean? And so I wanted it all to be very easy for employees and my customers to understand who it was we were and are aspiring to. And how we plan on, getting there. So that's where that
Yeah,
all came from.
I love your thinking because I'm like, I don't feel like a lot of people actually, I wouldn't have thought that deep into it. But whenever you were just explaining it, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like the three C's and like, yeah, that was pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so let's move on to what makes your business so special. So, who primarily does your business serve? If I were in the audience, how would I know that I'm a good fit for your service?
Yeah, well, our primary customers are either business owners who own their own spaces or lease their spaces and have to have a HVAC contract. We live in Kansas, so we have heating and cooling, and they want a provider for their HVAC and plumbing needs that they can trust, that values transparency, that is here to sell solutions, but not necessarily take them for a ride. We believe, I feel that the industry as a whole has lost a lot of credibility and trust because of some of the direction that has gone. And this is where, all my other owners really don't like when I say the lack of transparency that flat rate pricing has brought to our industry has been very profitable for the owners,
Mm-hmm.
but at the detriment of our customers and the trust that our customers have in us. And so I wanted to be different in that way.
I like that. So, what is one thing that you wish more people knew about your business?
I wish more people knew that we are here for your emergencies, that, things break and you need somebody that you can trust to go make it right, and that they know they can count on us and trust us. I also wish, and, we say we're commercial heating, cooling, and plumbing, but getting that across to some of our customers, like letting them know that if they're an HVAC customer, they can also hire us for plumbing, or if they're a plumbing customer, they can also hire us for HVAC. Sometimes people get in their mind kind of tunnel vision, and letting them, we are constantly battling the um, education of, hey, we do both. Call us for both. You like us on
Yeah,
this, you'll love us for that.
I'm gonna put that down. It's funny because I used to work in leasing here in I almost said Missouri. I used to live in Missouri, but that's not where I was doing leasing at. I was doing leasing. I do leasing here in Austin, Texas, like a couple years ago. And it's funny because I'm from Illinois, so you think I would know what a HVAC was, but I had no idea what HVAC was until I started leasing, and they would talk about it, and I was like, "What is that?" And they're like, "Jada, that's the heating and cooling," and I was like, "Oh." I just never heard that word before. So I
That's
was
all
like, that
right.
doesn't.
That's all right.
So I thought it was so
It's
funny. I'm like,
industry
yeah,
jargon.
yeah. So how do you think that or sorry, wrong question that I was going to ask. Why do you think that your customers choose you instead of the competition?
Because of the things that I mentioned, because we're honest, because we're transparent, because we stand by our work. When we mess up, we're not afraid to say, "Yo, we missed on that. We're gonna make it right." So often companies, when their individuals make mistakes, rather than just saying, "Hey, we're human. We made a mistake," and I always tell my employees, we like to make first time mistakes. Let's not keep making the same mistake over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And, let's learn from it.
Right.
But own up to it, just be honest. And, over the past 15 years that I've been an owner, I mean, there've been a lot of mistakes. I hate to laugh about it, but there've been a lot of mistakes. And some of them were really pretty easy to
Mm-hmm.
fix, and some of them were really painful to fix. But we will always do what's right. And I feel like I wish more companies did that, but then the more that they don't, the more opportunity is for us. So
No, right.
there's
Because
that.
then it's like you trust the company more, like you just trust the people more. Just like, yeah, just be honest. I don't see why
Just
people
be honest.
decided to just start lying. Like,
Yeah, or blame it
it's
on
like
the
when you
customer.
feel
And that's the thing is sometimes there are things that aren't our fault. And I feel like because
Hmm.
we're the kind of company that's like, yeah, that was our miss, we're gonna make it right. When there is something that's legitimately not our fault, then our customers believe that we are telling them the truth. We don't
Yeah.
have to justify it as much because we have a track record of owning up to when we miss. And that's human.
Yeah.
Any
Right. It's
any
like
person
everyone
out
makes
there.
mistakes. Nobody is perfect. So just admit your faults and it's fine. We'll move on from it,
Yeah.
basically. Okay, so this is actually going to lead me into marketing, which is something that's vital for every business out there, of course. And it's often an area where business owners struggle. So I'm curious what successful businesses are doing. So what percentage of your monthly sales is typically invested back into your marketing budget?
Oh, I should know that off the top of my head, but I want to say it's roughly 2%. Because we're commercial service, we don't necessarily have to spend as much as
Mm-hmm.
the companies that are in the residential markets do. Residential contractors, they have billboards, they're sponsoring, the Royals and the Chiefs, and they're doing TV ads and, radio
Mm-hmm.
ads. They do all of that. And we do
Right.
none of that. We have a marketing partner that we work with. We've been working with them for about 5 years now, and they're awesome, local Kansas business. And we spend a
Nice.
lot of the majority of our funds are spent on SEO and PPC, and everything that goes along with that.
Nice. And it's wow. That's how you know it's Monday. I'm just stuttering and everything. But it's nice to like not have to even spend a lot on your marketing because I know like literally like people struggle with it and they don't understand it a lot of times unless they go to someone and be like, hey, like, can you explain this to me and go through this with me or whatever? But that's great that you guys don't even have to do that. Like I like whenever a business can just basically like word of mouth, I guess, is
Mhm.
like their marketing. But yeah, that's really cool. I like that for you. So, what sort of, or what is your number one marketing strategy that has brought you the most business, do you think?
I mean, honestly, positive word of mouth has been the number one strategy. The close second is our website optimization. The money that, when we first started working with the firm we are with now, our website was basically a really pretty piece of paper with a
Mm,
URL. There was no optimization to it. I didn't even really understand what optimization was. It wasn't driving any traffic to our phones or our email. And over time, that was one of the first things we invested with was, back in 2020, 5 years ago, during the pandemic, right before the pandemic was when I was like, okay, it's time for us to really look at marketing our way to growth.
mhm,
And I remember one of the 10,000 podcasts that I listened to those, first few months of the, shutdowns and all the craziness that was going on. Some guy said, run to the roar. And I wasn't sure if I was going to, move forward with this marketing plan, or this company. It felt very risky at that time because our revenues were so uncertain and etc. And when I heard that run to the roar, it was basically like put your foot on the gas during the bad times. And I thought, you know what? I'm
mm,
moving forward. And the thing that I loved about the company that I worked with is, I basically they pitched a monthly budget or retainer. And I came back to them and I said, right now I'm a little unsure about this. Can we start with a smaller bite? And they were willing to do that for us. And I really appreciate that. And then we've grown with, we've grown our retainer over the past 5 years as they've continued to produce good results for us.
nice. I actually like that quote that you said, when you said run to the roar, and then when you explained it, I really like that. I'm gonna probably put that on my Instagram later for
Yeah, it
someone to
stuck.
see. I'm like,
It
I
stuck
actually
with
kind of
me.
needed that today.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, so moving from marketing to sales, what does your sales process look like?
Um, it, it looks a little different. Right now, we do have a director of business development who he's been in the position a year. He's been with me for 11 years. He
Oh,
started out as
nice.
a plumber and now does business development for us. And so, he's out there, I like to say, kind of pounding the pavement, trying to establish new relationships with customers. But many of our customers, when they have a need, whether that be they have units or spaces that need preventive maintenance, they have an event where something has broken and it needs to be replaced, or they have an emergency, this kind of 911, water main breaks, etc. Toilet's not working, AC heat's not working, they call us and then we work them into the system depending on the level of severity of the call. When it's a emergency, we do our best to get out within 24 hours. Um, that sometimes is not always achievable when, we have, just I call it catastrophic events where, we get
Right.
many, many calls in a very short period of time. It's usually the first, hot snap of the year, the first cold snap. If there's, really
I was just gonna say, do you
torrential.
guys get calls right whenever like you have to switch the ACs and stuff from
Yes.
cold to hot and stuff?
Yes. It's always like very weather dependent.
Hmm.
And we kind of our dispatch board is the list of all of the jobs we have to go to assigned to different technicians. And as a service contractor, it's constantly in motion and constantly being juggled. And all of our customers know that we treat every call, if you will, every dispatch as like the level in an emergency room. So you might have a drippy faucet, and that's, emergency, like you got to get it fixed, but it's not a no hot water.
Right.
It's not water,
It's
spewing
not like
out of,
middle of the winter and you have no heat type of
right.
emergency. Like,
And so we run our dispatch board like an emergency room triage, and sometimes things get rescheduled, and we hate to do that, but our customers also understand that when we reschedule, we always circle back and they know that
mhm.
they can count on us if they're, like the emergency room analogy, if they're coming in with a heart attack, they know that we're going to be there, versus like a splinter in a hand.
Yeah, I like that because I remember whenever I was working in leasing, like I had to do the same interaction with customers and or not customers with the residents and like make sure that they knew whenever the worker was going to be coming to do the certain things on their apartment. And then we had times where people like they had like the water leak from their faucet and they felt like that was more important than someone having like a whole leak in their whole apartment, like the floor, like something's getting damaged, like and it's like no, like you can actually wait because their apartment's being damaged, like the wood's being damaged, like the floor is being damaged, wall, like whatever is being damaged. But yeah, I understand that. So that's I liked how we just you just brought that up because I've definitely had to deal with people who weren't understanding about the time frame and like they didn't understand that their situation wasn't actually an emergency, I guess, per se.
Yeah. And I think our team does a really good job of articulating that to people to say,
Yeah.
we value and appreciate that this is an emergency to you, but we've got somebody with, like poop water, flowing out of,
Hmm.
spraying all in their room, in
Yeah.
this
Yeah. And
area.
it's like that's great.
They've got no water to their entire building. They've got no heat
Right.
to their entire building. So, the fact that your thermostat is set at 72 and it's only at 68, it's okay. Like, hang
Right.
tight with us. We'll get to you, but we've got people that have zero heat right now.
Yeah. Okay, so of course you had mentioned having a few team members where possible, and I feel it's important to address the topic of building a team. So, how would you describe your leadership style in business, and has it changed over the years?
I would say it probably hasn't changed. Even when I think back
Oh,
to the
nice.
days when I was in the corporate world, I've always tried to um, delegate with, give people the authority to make decisions,
Hmm.
with the guide rails or, bumpers if you're a bowler, um, to understand what what decisions they have the autonomy to make. I also believe that if I have an employee out in the field and they're going to make a call because they need to at that moment, even if it wasn't the call that we were going to make, we support them in that and explain to them after, hey, maybe you could have done this way or handled it a different way and use it as a teaching opportunity, but we still, stand behind you in your decision. Um, I feel far too often leaders think that they're the only ones who can make the right call. And they
Hmm.
end up kind of handcuffing their teams from doing extraordinary things because of that. I admit that in my organization, I can sometimes be the bottleneck, and I try really hard to not be the bottleneck and
Yeah.
trust people, hire the right people who believe in the core values and the vision of DMC, and then allow them to do their jobs and try to stay out of their way, and offer, counsel and guidance and mentoring and coaching when it's appropriate.
Yeah. I was going to actually ask, what has been your approach to hiring and retaining team members today?
I mean, that has definitely evolved. But I would say the things that we look for are definitely attitude, number one. Does the person understand and buy into our core values?
Yeah.
Do they want to be a good teammate? Is being a good teammate ahead of their own personal, agendas? And, are they going to treat, our coworkers and our customers in a way that I try to treat them? We can teach anybody anything, you know.
Yeah. I like that.
So we really try to hire for attitude first. And, frankly speaking, sometimes there are people who have a lot of experience, but they don't fit the company culture and they don't last very long, or we've, grown over time where we recognize that in the interview process and don't even, extend them an
Move
offer,
forward.
even though they might have a tremendous amount of experience. It's
Yeah.
just not worth
That,
it.
right. No, understandable. So, what type of training do you have in place for your team members whenever they do get on the team?
Yeah, we have all kinds of training. One, we have formal training where we partner with our vendors or trade associations to give training to our employees. That is a very, formalized process. We also have on-the-job training. I've hired a lot of kids right out of high school, and,
Oh, nice.
we allow them to basically be apprentices and learn the trades out in the field, next to people who have been in the trades for a while. So we really believe in, that mentor kind of coach relationship out in the field. Um, and then, sometimes we have online training. For instance, all of our field technicians have their OSHA 10 certification, and we
Mm-hmm.
use online training for that. And it's the kind of program that when we have a week that's maybe a little slow, or somebody, had a doctor's appointment and they missed a couple of hours, then we allow them at their discretion, as long as they're under their 40 hours for the week, to partake in the online training that we provide.
That's cool. I like how there's like a bunch of different ways to get the training done. Like, that's really nice. Especially nowadays, whenever it's like anything can happen. So it's just like it's nice to be able to have that online, like whenever they need it, type of thing. That's just cool. Okay, so let's look into the future and see what's to come next. So where do you see your company in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh gosh, well, um, continuing to grow. We've had some really high growth years the past, 3 or 4 years, which has been very exciting. Not every year is a 30% growth, but some years have been. And so continuing to grow in a, thoughtful, measured way. Not all growth is good. And so
Right.
making sure that, it's healthy growth, building numbers, and continuing to serve the Kansas City region. You know, a lot of times I'm asked, are we going to go outside the Kansas City metro? And we do with
I was actually going to ask that.
yeah, with a couple of examples, key customers that have multi-locations. We'll go over to Topeka for them, which is about an hour away. We'll go up to St. Joe,
Yeah.
which is about 35 minutes north. I mean, we kind of keep it a tight circle, but the Kansas City area has a ton of buildings. There's
Yeah.
no lack of work for us here, and so continuing to stay focused on customer acquisition within the Kansas City metro is our growth plan.
Nice. I was like, if you ever do decide to, go to like another state, you should definitely do Texas because you will have so much business in the summertime whenever all the ACs go out. Oh my God, it's crazy here. Everyone's like, wait, my AC. But then it's like, oh, this whole building doesn't have AC. Oh, then like, yeah, it's crazy here. It's so crazy. Or even whenever it does decide to like snow and freeze here, it's crazy. These people
Yeah.
don't know what's
I
going
have
down whenever
friends in
that happens.
Texas. Yeah, I'm originally from Michigan, and so my family is all back there. And we joke that, when they get 6 inches of snow, it's no big deal. If we get 6 inches of snow, like the world shuts down. In fact, we're having a little snow event right now, and there's probably 2 inches on the ground, and we've already
Oh
basically
my gosh.
grounded our fleet because the roads are so bad. And it's not our drivers, it's everybody else out on the road that's
Yes.
dangerous. Um, and we always, like I say, put safety first. I don't want
Yeah.
it's not worth it for somebody to get into an accident. Obviously we have
Not at all.
emergency calls, we have to run them, but right now we've basically it's 10:45 here and almost our whole crew is now home because of the snow.
Yeah, my it snowed back home. I'm from Illinois, so it just snowed back home. I think it was yesterday it started, and everyone was on Facebook showing like the snow and how deep it was. I think my friend it was like this far above her door, and I was like, yeah, this is why I moved to Texas because I wasn't about to deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
I
Well,
hate the snow.
yeah, up in Michigan they measure it in feet and we measure it in inches and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, yeah, well, you don't need that here. So you have had a really interesting story. So as we wrap up, I have a few rapid fire questions. Are you ready for them?
I'm ready.
Awesome. What is the key to success for you?
Prayer. Prayer and positive attitude.
Yes. What is one piece of advice for other business owners?
Um, ooh, that's a good one. What's one piece of advice? Have a good relationship with your banker.
Ooh, that's a good one. I've like out of all the people I've interviewed, no one has ever said that. So
Well,
that's a good
everybody
one.
else is wrong. First and foremost, have a good relationship with your banker.
That is great. Okay, so what is a book or podcast you are reading or listening to right now?
Oh gosh, I just recently started reading some books for fun that weren't business related. And that would be a rabbit hole to go down. But my team, my leadership team, we do basically a book club and read a
Oh,
book
cool.
together and then discuss it at our weekly meetings. And we're reading The Advantage right now. And it is 10 out of 10 recommend.
I'm like, I'm about to write that down. I always write down the books that people say because I'm like, I'm not much of a reader, but when I do read, like I get into the book. So I'm like, I need to write all these down so that I can become a good business person later in life, or hopefully sooner than later, but later. Okay, and this is a kind of a fun question. If you had a little bit of magic dust that you could choose one spot of your business to sprinkle it on, where would it be?
Oh gosh. A little bit of magic dust. You know, I gotta say, I love that question, but I have to say that right now, I'm gonna knock on wood, things are going so well. I feel like we
Good.
have the right people on the team, they're in the right seats, they're doing what, we aspire to do. We are blessed with amazing customers. I have a great banking relationship. I, we've got great insurance agents, supportive lawyer, like all of it. Our marketing team is great. I don't know that they're
All the ducks are in a row.
all the I feel like, and as soon as as soon as we say goodbye, it'll probably I'll hit the fan and I'll be like, boy, here's how I would answer that question now, 5 minutes later. But
Right.
I'm really, really proud of what we've achieved, where we're going, um, and how I feel like we are growing in respect in the community, which is our vision to be the most respected heating, cooling, and plumbing service contractor in the Kansas City metro. And I do believe we're getting closer and closer to achieving that.
That's awesome. Okay, so before we get into the final question of the day, could you please share with our audience how they can follow you and learn more and contact you?
Yeah, well, DMC Service, we have a small but mighty little Facebook page. They can follow us there. It's DMC Service Inc. Personally, I am newly on TikTok. And it's all campaign stuff. So if you don't want to hear about, local politics, don't tune in. But I'm trying to make an impact there with educating folks on how important local politics are. And that handle is Casey for JOCO, JOCO 2026. But if somebody really wants to connect with me, LinkedIn is probably the best, and it's just Karen Crnkovich. There's only one of me
Okay,
on LinkedIn.
no, really there is because I I was like, I hope not a lot pop up because the way that your last name is spelled anyways. So I was like, hopefully not a lot pop up. And then you were literally the only one. Thank God.
I'm literally the only one. So I'm easy to find.
Well, awesome. So we've come to that final question of the day, and it is what is most inspiring to you today?
You know, Today, I think what is most inspiring is we are just kicking off. I'm a proud Christian. I believe in Jesus, and prayer is really, really important to me and my success. I pray every day, not just for me. I have a prayer book that I pray for friends that, are going through health challenges or life challenges. I pray for, my kids. But we just started Advent. And I think in the whole season of each year in the liturgical season, I never say that right, so forgive me.
Oh,
Um,
you're okay.
I think Advent is such a beautiful time. It's so hopeful. We're waiting for the birth of Christ. And I love this season. I love Lent as well, but for a different reason. But Advent is just a time of, waiting and anticipation and hope. And I find that incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I hope everyone takes a little piece of that home with them today because that was really nice. Okay, well, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed hearing your story, Karen. So thank you so much for sharing. And also, I just want to encourage all of you watching to save this show and come back and watch it again because Karen really did have some great insights for business. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that you can get notifications every time a conversation drops, just like this one. Thank you to everyone who joined us today, and special thank you to you, Karen, again for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a great time.